I took a DNA test for a school project and found out I was switched at birth. Neither my mom nor dad are biologically mine, but the real shock was that neither family ended up with the right child. I think there's been a mistake, I said, holding the DNA results like they were radioactive, because they felt radioactive, like they'd already melted through the floor and set fire to everything I knew about my life. Mr. Bennett, my biology teacher, peered over his glasses with a tired smile. They're accurate. Ancestry kits are shockingly reliable nowadays. But these people, Michael and Julie Erickson, they're not a match. Not even close. I could feel my face flushing. My classmates had already moved on to dissecting Punnett squares and hereditary eye color. Meanwhile, I was staring at a report that casually declared I was a stranger in my own family. I mumbled something and stumbled out of class, barely keeping it together as I hit the hallway. My parents, well, the people I thought were my parents, had volunteered their samples too. It was supposed to be a fun, dumb family project. A curiosity. Maybe we're secretly royalty, my dad joked as we sealed the kits. I got home before anyone else that day. The house was quiet, sun slanting through the kitchen blinds, dust motes dancing like the world hadn't just imploded. I sat at the table, DNA report spread out like a confession. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. My mom walked in an hour later, keys jingling, humming some song from the 80s. I didn't know how to say it, so I just did. Hey, do you and Dad want to tell me why I'm not biologically related to either of you? The humming stopped. She blinked. What are you talking about? I slid the paper across the table. Silence. She read, and read again. Then, something shifted in her expression. This confused, hollow sort of fear. That's not possible, she whispered. We did the fertility treatments. But you're mine. I gave birth to you. I have pictures. I believe that, I said quietly. I do, but the test doesn't lie. Her hands trembled as she picked up her phone. She called my dad. You need to come home. Now, it's important. No, not work-late important. This is different. By the time he walked through the door, I'd gone numb. They sat down across from me, like an intervention. Except this time I was the one dropping the bomb. I'm not your son, I said. And you're not my parents. And then came the wildest part. My mom broke down first. Not because she had secrets to confess, but because she genuinely, truly didn't know. Neither of them did. My dad, Martin, didn't cry. He just sat there staring at the report like he was waiting for someone to jump out and yell, "Gotcha! What do you mean you're not our son?" he asked slowly, like the words didn't compute. The DNA test says neither of you are biologically related to me. Says, I don't match either of you. Not even partially. Maybe there's an error, he said, reaching for denial like it was a life vest. Those tests mess up all the time. My mom, Julie, shook her head. They don't mess up that badly. Not with both of us. I didn't know what to do with my hands, so I just stared at them. Were there any weird things at the hospital when I was born? Mix-ups, anything? Julie's eyes flickered. We were in the NICU for 2 days. Remember? Your oxygen levels. But they had security. ID tags. I breastfed you. I saw them put the bracelet on your ankle. I get it, I said. But the test still says I'm someone else's kid. There was this moment, long and quiet, where the only sound was the clock ticking over the fridge. And then Dad stood up and muttered, "We need answers." We spent that night eating cold pizza in silence and Googling things like switched at birth lawsuit and hospital mix-ups real stories. Turns out it's rare, but not impossible. Julie called the hospital where I was born. It took 3 different departments and some aggressive pleading, but someone finally agreed to pull the original birth logs. The next day, we got the call. The nurse sounded tense. I probably shouldn't be saying this over the phone, she said. But there were 2 boys born within 7 minutes of each other that night. One was yours. One was to a woman named Lila Madden. We froze. Neither of us had ever heard that name before. But here's where it got even messier. Julie asked the obvious question, "And where's her son?" The nurse hesitated. Then, "Ma'am, her baby died the next day." Julie's breath caught. So if her son passed, and mine came home with me, whose child did I raise? We stared at each other like we were all ghosts now. I think my dad was the first to say what we were all thinking. Then where's our son? The hospital stonewalled for a while. Something about internal investigations, legal protections, HIPAA. But Julie wasn't having it. She showed up in person, cold fury in her voice, and whatever she said worked. They gave her a name. Nathaniel Rowe. Born the same day, same hospital, same hour. Apparently, someone had stuck a wrong label on a wristband. The nurse on duty had retired a decade ago. There were no fingerprints to trace, no cameras saved from that night, just a flurry of old paperwork and a system that trusted its own perfection too much. And just like that, everything changed. The boy they raised me wasn't theirs. And the boy they lost? He wasn't theirs either. I'm sorry, my mom said that night, her eyes rimmed red. I know you're still our son in every way that matters, but I need to find him. I need to know what happened to the baby I held. I didn't blame her. How could I? She'd loved me like I was hers. Every scraped knee, every bedtime story, every whispered, I love you when she thought I was asleep. It was all real. But suddenly I was floating unanchored. No roots. No history. So I did what any normal, spiraling 17-year-old would do. I found Nathaniel on Facebook. There he was. Same birthday. Same city. Same hospital. But completely different life. Private school. Soccer trophies. A smile that looked eerily like my dad's. He had my DNA. My blood. My actual genetic history. And I had his life. I stared at his profile for a long time before finally asking myself the question that had been sitting heavy in the back of my brain since this whole thing started. If I'm not their son, do I even want to meet the people who are really my parents? I didn't send Nathaniel a friend request. I sent him a message. Just, simple. Hey, this is going to sound completely insane, but I think we were switched at birth. Then I sat back and watched the typing bubble appear, disappear, reappear, and finally vanish. No reply. At school, I went through the motions. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. About him. Did he already know? Did his parents know? 3 days later, I got the reply. We've known for 2 years. That sentence felt like a punch in the ribs. My mom always had doubts. She said something felt wrong from the beginning. I thought she was just being paranoid until she did a private test last year. We were planning to tell you. Eventually. Eventually? I scrolled up and down, half expecting him to delete it. But he didn't. He sent a second message. You're the Rose kid. I'm the Ericksons. We've all been living a lie. The words were so clinical, like he was reading off lab results. I didn't know how to respond. I just sat in my room, staring at my reflection, wondering how much of me this me was still real. Then another message came through. My mom doesn't want to meet. Says it would be too hard. My dad, maybe. But you should know, they don't talk about you like your family. You're more of a ghost. A ghost? I shut the laptop and went for a walk. I passed my childhood park. The one where Julie used to push me on the swings and yell, higher, even when I was too scared to go past the first arc. I passed the pizza place where Martin took me after my first breakup, no words, just 2 slices and a quiet, understanding nod. And I thought, was it all a lie? But then I realized no, it wasn't. Because even if I wasn't theirs by blood, I was theirs in every other way. Still, I had to make a decision now. Do I reach out to my biological family? Or do I leave it all buried? I didn't tell my parents right away. I didn't want to hurt them, and I didn't want to hear them say, it's okay if you want to meet them, with that brittle little smile that says it's not okay at all. But I needed answers. So I messaged Nathaniel again. Can you give me your dad's number? He replied 2 minutes later with nothing but a phone number and a short, good luck. I waited a day before dialing. The man who picked up had my voice. Or maybe I had his. Hello? Hi, is this Adam Rowe? Yes, who's calling? I hesitated. My name's Jonah Erickson. I think I'm your biological son. Silence. Then, I was wondering when you'd call. Turns out he'd known even longer than Nathaniel. But his wife, my biological mom, refused to pursue it. She said it would be cruel to reopen the wound. That we already buried a child once. That line hit me harder than anything else. I thought they'd be curious, or angry, or desperate to meet me. But no. To them, I was a chapter best left unread. Still, Adam agreed to meet. We met at a neutral spot, a coffee shop 2 towns over. I was shaking so bad I nearly dropped my drink. He walked in wearing a charcoal coat and a look like he was expecting this to go badly. And honestly, it did. He was polite, cordial. but distant. He asked about school. I told him I liked history. He nodded. Your grandfather was a history teacher, he said. Guess that stuck. Then he asked if I planned to go to college. I said I wasn't sure. Figures, he mumbled. Nathaniel's got a full ride for soccer. You got your looks from my side. But maybe not the discipline. That was it. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't going to be some magical reconnection. I finished my coffee, thanked him for his time, and walked out. No hug, no tears, no sun. Just two strangers who happened to share DNA and not much else. When I got home, my mom was waiting in the kitchen. She looked up at me, trying to smile. How was it? I didn't lie. Disappointing. She walked over and wrapped her arms around me like she was trying to squeeze the grief right out of my body. You'll always be mine, she whispered. And for the first time in days, I let myself cry. It wasn't over. Not even close. A week later, Nathaniel messaged me again. Just a heads up. My mom found your Instagram. She's upset. She says you look like her brother. Now she wants to meet. I stared at the messages, unsure if I should laugh or scream. Now she wanted to meet? After years of pretending I didn't exist? After calling me a ghost? Part of me wanted to ignore it. But the truth was, I wanted to see her too. Not for closure. Not even for curiosity. Just to know what kind of woman gave birth to me and spent 17 years believing she buried me. So I said yes. We met at a park. Quiet, neutral ground. She sat on a bench, hands twisted together in her lap. She looked younger than I expected, but tired in a way that goes beyond age. Jonah, she said softly, standing. I didn't know whether to shake her hand or hug her, so I did nothing. I didn't want to believe it, she said. When I saw your picture, I thought, maybe it was just the angle, or a trick of the light. She paused. But then I saw your smile, and I knew. I stayed silent. Just let her talk. We buried a baby we didn't know. I raised a child who didn't belong to me. I don't know what to feel. I'm angry. I'm relieved. I'm shattered. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small box. I don't know if this means anything to you, but I saved this. Inside was a tiny hospital bracelet. Yellowed, cracked, barely legible. Jonah Rowe, it read. I thought I was honoring a memory, she whispered. Turns out, I was clinging to a mistake. I looked at her, this woman who should have been my mother, and realized something gutting. I didn't feel anything. No warmth, no connection, no sense of home, just guilt. Guilt that she lost something and I couldn't give it back. She reached for my hand. I'm not trying to replace anyone, she said. I want to know the boy I lost. I nodded once. I'll think about it. And I walked away. Halfway down the path, I heard her sob, but I didn't turn back. Because no matter what my blood says, love isn't genetic. It's chosen. My 18th birthday hit different. Not because of some big party or gift. I didn't want either. What I wanted was clarity. Closure, maybe. But mostly, I wanted to feel something that made sense again. Julie made my favorite cake. Chocolate, extra frosting. Dad grilled steaks like he always did, even though it was raining sideways. We ate by candlelight because the power flickered out mid-dinner. Somehow it felt right, like the universe was reminding me that real warmth comes from people, not light bulbs. Later that night, Julie handed me an envelope. This was supposed to be for your graduation, she said. But I think you should read it now. It was a letter she'd written weeks ago, maybe longer. I read it upstairs, sitting cross-legged on my bed, surrounded by the mess of my life. Jonah, I don't know what to say except that I love you. Not because of genetics, not because of birthrights, but because of every scraped knee, every spelling bee, every time you asked for one more bedtime story even when you were too old for them. I've watched you grow into someone I'm proud of, every single day. I didn't carry your DNA, but I carried your heart, and I'll keep carrying it, whether you go searching for answers or never speak to the rose again. Just know this, you were never a mistake. You were a miracle. Mom. I folded the letter and pressed it against my chest, eyes burning. She didn't need to say it out loud. I already knew. I decided to message Nathaniel one more time. Not to meet, not to dig deeper, just to say what I needed to say. You're the Rose son. I'm the Ericksons. But neither of us chose this. I don't know if I'll ever really want to be part of their lives. But I hope you got something good. I hope they loved you like mine loved me. I stared at the message for 10 minutes before hitting send. He saw it almost immediately, but didn't reply, and that was okay. I didn't need a reply, because for the first time since the DNA test, I didn't feel like a mistake anymore. I felt whole. Not in a movie-ending way. Not everything tied up with a bow. But real. Messy. Complicated. Human. Julie and Martin were never just my adoptive parents. They were my parents. They are. I told them I didn't want to pursue the Rose any further. I said it at dinner, one bite into a lasagna Julie made with too much garlic, just the way I like it. Dad nodded. Julie squeezed my hand. And that was that. 3 weeks later, a letter arrived in our mailbox. No return address. Just my name. Handwritten. Inside was a folded sheet of notebook paper and a photo, blurry, old, faded with age. It was of 2 tiny babies side by side in bassinets, hospital tags barely visible. One had a small purple knit cap. The other had none. The note was short. We've had this photo for years. Thought you should have it too. You were never forgotten. Adam Rowe. It didn't feel like closure. It felt like someone cracking the door just enough to let in a little air. A reminder that some stories don't really end, they just pause until someone's ready to turn the page again. I kept the photo. Not as a symbol of what I lost, but of what I survived. I looked at it one last time before tucking it into the back of Julie's letter. Then I went downstairs, into the kitchen, and sat with my parents as we folded laundry and argued about who put red socks in the whites. And that was real. That was mine. I used to wonder where I came from. Now I care more about where I'm going and who's going there with me. Update, 3 months later. I wasn't planning to write again. Honestly, I thought that chapter was closed. But life has a way of throwing curveballs even when you think you've rounded home base. A few weeks ago, I got an unexpected DM from Nathaniel. Hey, just wanted to say. I told my parents I didn't want to see them anymore. Not because of you. Because they never really saw me either. I didn't expect that. He went on to say how weird it feels to realize your whole life was shaped by an accident. How sometimes he stares at his reflection and sees a stranger. And yeah, I get that. I told him I do. We've been messaging back and forth since. Nothing deep yet, just 2 guys talking music, weird school memories, favorite takeout places. But it's something. Not brothers. Not strangers. Something in between. Meanwhile, at home, things are good. Simple. Comfortable. Julie found the photo Adam sent and had it framed, purple cap and all. It's sitting on our mantle now, between my first grade class picture and a snow globe I made when I was 6. Sometimes I catch her looking at it. Not with sadness, but with something closer to peace. And me? I stopped wondering what could have been. Because what I have this life, it's messy, imperfect, and entirely mine. TLDR, I was switched at birth. My biological parents didn't want me. But the people who raised me? They chose me every day. And now I'm choosing them back.